Warning: the following video contains swears. Viewer discretion is advised.
Oh shit!
That is the worst boat ever. The Longest Journey is a point-and-click adventure game released in 1999 by the Norwegian game company Funcom. The title comes from a quote of Swedish diplomat Dag The longest journey is the journey inward, for he who has chosen his destiny has started upon his quest for the source of his being. This was Funcom's first original title and was developed by a small internal team headed by this guy. The game comes in 4 CD, 2 CD, and single DVD versions, although there isn't any difference between them. It's also available on Steam, GOG, and iOS. It runs fine on modern systems, but there's a bit of an issue with the quit menu. The quit menu shows up as a blank white box and you can't move the mouse. I own the 2 CD version, and I bought it from GOG also, thinking that this problem would be fixed. It wasn't. According to GOG's tech support, they tried to fix the problem but couldn't. After doing some digging on my own, I learned that you can just type Y for yes or N for no to get through it. The story takes place about 200 years in the future in a cyberpunk version of our world called Stark. You play as April Ryan, who is generally considered one of the most memorable and better female video game protagonists. April has been suffering from strange dreams lately, and you start in one of them. This area is your tutorial. You have a simple task to complete with no time limit. After you complete it, a white dragon arrives and talks to you about how you're the future of what may be. After being forced off a cliff by an evil cloud, you wake up thinking it was all a nightmare. After getting dressed, you talk to Zach, the chauvinistic pig of the game, go downstairs, and talk to your landlady who tells you that the local weirdo named Cortez is looking for you. When you run into him, he does the typical stuff of informing you that you have a higher purpose in life, which, of course, you don't believe. That is until surreal, dreamlike things start happening, like this weird, dancing, flute-playing creature that pops out of the jukebox. After that, you become more open-minded towards what Cortez is trying to tell you and agree to meet him in the theater. After a convoluted puzzle to actually get into the theater, Cortez explains that you're a shifter, a person who can move between worlds. After another convoluted puzzle, a portal is opened and you enter Arcadia. Here you learn the world has been split in two by 4 dragons. The world you're familiar with is Stark, ruled by logic and science. The other is Arcadia, ruled by mysticism and magic. 2 of the dragons rule Stark, the other 2 Arcadia. This was done to maintain the balance. But the balance is disrupted, and it's your job to fix it by becoming the 13th Guardian. This brings us to talking in this game. In adventure games, you talk to people. In The Longest Journey, you also talk to people. For very long periods of time. Everybody in this game prattles on forever. The best example of this is when you're talking to a man named Vestrum Tobias about the history of Arcadia. He goes on for 14 minutes. It's not a cutscene. There's no flashback or anything. It's just him standing there, in front of a mural, talking for 14 minutes. But before you can hear Tobias's dissertation on the history of Arcadia, you need to learn the language of the land. You do this by talking to him, over and over and over again. This took so long, I actually thought I had to go find an item or something first. But no, you just keep selecting responses until April eventually figures it out. There's another part where a map maker you're working for goes into extensive detail about where you're supposed to deliver a map. After a long explanation, the location appears on your map and you click on it to travel there instantly. I think this was supposed to be humorous. It wasn't. The whole time he's prattling on, you're just staring at your map, waiting. The thing is, I don't think they did these long conversations to pad the game. I think they just wanted long, involved conversations. Usually the dialogue contains a clue about where you're supposed to go or what you're supposed to do next, but it's usually swamped out by lengthy yammering on about stuff. I suppose this could be considered flavor or character development, but it often goes on for so long that I just don't care anymore when it's finally over with. The nice thing is all your conversations are recorded as text, word for word. So if you think you missed something, you can go back and look. As far as the puzzles go, some of them are kind of, shall we say, abstract. At one point, you need to wind a watch. You're supposed to use a push pin to do this. When would you use a push pin to wind a watch in real life? For that matter, how many kids playing this game in 1999 would know about the concept of winding a watch? The game also misleads you sometimes. In the tutorial, when April looks at the large nest that an egg rolled out of, she says,
"For some strange reason, I have a feeling I should get the hell out of here before the tenants return."
A few minutes later, you need to interact with the nest to get an item out of it. That's kind of misleading. Later on, you see some berries. When you observe them, April says,
"Those berries look ripe and juicy, but my mom taught me never to judge a book by its cover. They're probably poisonous and almost certainly fattening."
Yet you need to gather them, mix them into a paste, and put them on a man's mouth. Let me say that again. You're supposed to take berries that you suspect are poisonous and put them on the mouth of another person to save them. If I suspected a berry was poisonous, I would not put it anywhere near a person's mouth. Anyway, moving on. This is an adventure game after all, so be sure to look at and pick up absolutely everything you can. In fact, do it twice. Sometimes the option to pick up or interact with an object only becomes available after you've looked at it. After you've put an object in your inventory, be sure to look at it again. Sometimes you'll gain extra information or even gain new items. For example, you'll want to remove the eye from this toy monkey you get from your room. This isn't a pixel hunting game, but it's kinda close. This is also one of those games where you can't put yourself in an unwinnable situation. If you're stuck, try interacting with your inventory items more. You might find that you have to do something to an item you already have before you can use it how you're supposed to. When items no longer serve a purpose, they disappear from your inventory, so that's nice. This brings me to the only bug in the game that I know of. At one point, you need to get into the police station. If you try to enter through the lobby, the game crashes. This is a known bug. Luckily, the only reason to go into the lobby is to find out that you need to get in some other way. So when that time comes, just pretend you tried and were told to leave. The Longest Journey has been praised by critics and players since it was released, and for good reason. For being released in 1999, it's beautiful. The cutscenes are some of the best CGI for the time. The backgrounds are gorgeous, pulchritudinous even. The story is complex, April goes through actual character growth that you can see, and the game is challenging. And there's cyberpunk, and magic, and frickin' dragons. Who doesn't love that? Some of the puzzles are pretty crazy though. It was criticized at the time for that, but they're not impossible. You just have to have the patience to do a lot of running back and forth and try using everything on everything. The story, while good, doesn't really get going until about Chapter 4. The humor often falls flat. The funniest part is seeing April act like a fool in the background of a news report, and that only gave me a light chuckle. The voice acting is good, none of the voices got on my nerves, but the sheer length of the conversations completely took me out of the game. I think most of the conversations and interactions with NPCs could have been shortened. For instance, does the librarian need to be startled every time I approach him to look at a book?
Oh, goodness, it's you again. Oh, you gave me such a fright.
And for that matter, do I really need to watch him slowly walk across the screen to get it, and slowly walk back to me each time? And do I really need to watch him slowly put the book away when I'm done? Critics at the time found the ending unfulfilling and didn't think it really resolved anything for April. I tend to agree with them, but I didn't mind it that much. But the critics at the time didn't know another game was on the way. Maybe that one will help the ending of this one feel a little more satisfying.